Hello, everyone. Welcome and happy Saturday to you. Thank you for joining me today. Just before we get started, a couple of quick announcements here. So, first off, I just want to thank everybody who's given me feedback regarding my first political coverage video that I just put out a few days ago. The feedback has been great and has indeed played a large role in me making the decision to continue down this political commentary road. So I am continuing down that path. I do want to let everyone know that my primary platform for this purpose is going to be YouTube. For the time being, I will still share and promote my content on other social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, but I do believe that YouTube is the best platform for this. So, that being said, I have changed my channel's name to Crockett News to reflect what my goal is here on this platform, and I do appreciate anyone who's able to give this video, any video, a like, share. Subscribing to my YouTube channel will assist in getting this platform and my content out there to other people who may be interested but don't know me as closely as most people do that have seen this content so far. So that is greatly appreciated as we get started with this brand new channel. Thank you for that. So we're gonna hop right into it here. My last video was covering some of the executive orders that Trump did just in his first and second day in office, and a lot has happened since then. So much so that I won't be able to squeeze everything that I'd like to talk about in one video, but that's not a problem. I do plan on keeping this content going for you guys. I do plan to release videos at least every few days to the best of my abilities. So we're gonna hop right in here and talk about things that have occurred over the last few days. So the first things that I want to discuss are, frankly, what I consider to be some attacks on the Constitution, moves that are not quite legal but are being challenged at this time. So the first that you may be aware of is Trump's order to end birthright citizenship. This has since been challenged actually by a Republican judge in Seattle who pointed out, as is quite obvious, that this is unconstitutional. To go down this path would in fact require a constitutional amendment, and I do believe that Trump and his administration knows that. I don't want people to be under the impression that because this judge has temporarily blocked this order that we're out of the woods yet. You have to remember that Trump and the GOP do currently control the vast majority of the Supreme Court. So, assuming that this will make it there, it's difficult to say what decision they will make. Don't have a lot of faith in the integrity of the Supreme Court. They have made a lot of decisions in the last several years that are directly against the Constitution or just simply are not interpreted as the law. It's more so their opinions, and dangerous changes can come as a result of that. So, regardless on where you stand on birthright citizenship, most Republicans that I know, especially under Democratic administrations, have always been very fervent defenders of the Constitution. So I would love to hear arguments as to why you think birthright citizenship should end. This is something that America has held to a high standard since the 1800s when this was introduced, and it is a core part of what this country stands for. America, welcoming immigrants and people being born in this country being given citizenship is not it's a rampant issue if you consider it an issue. I consider it to be quite a large factor of the success of this country, but there's debate to be had about that. The main thing to keep in mind at this time is that the order given is again in direct violation of the Constitution. So we do have to see where that goes, and I am again interested in hearing opinions on that in particular. The other thing against the Constitution, this hasn't been done yet. It's something that Trump and some of the people that he has selected for office have now floated. A bill will probably be introduced to the House shortly, which is to allow Trump to then run for a third term. This is what a lot of us were concerned about. I understand that there are some people, particularly that voted for Trump, who like the idea of him serving a third term. I've heard some arguments to the point of, well, he had his first term, but then Biden had a term, Trump gets another term, why can't he serve a third term? The answer is obvious. I mean, a third term, regardless of the gap or not, would be against the Constitution. The two-term limit is in place for a reason. And what I would like people to consider, especially those who would like to see Trump in a third term, is where does this end? If we do go down this path, this is when you start having the conversation of it. It doesn't really look like a presidency anymore. It more becomes a king's kind of situation, a dictator, a fascism. This is how we go down this road. Not to say that we're there yet, but when you go down this path, when you talk about a third term is fine, why not a fourth term? Why not a fifth term? And then all of a sudden we're talking about lifetime appointments, which I don't think anybody thinks that we should have in politics. I think most people on both sides of the aisle recognize that we do need fresh blood in politics. You look at the Supreme Court as your primary example of lifetime appointments and what that can do to this country. You have a lot of people who, while they may have been great or let's say decent judges at some point in their time, times change. Worldviews become outdated when you are able to hold a certain position for 30 plus years. You have to question, at what point are you evolving with the country around you? At what point are you fighting for the modern needs of the American people? They're not the same needs as they were, perhaps in the 1970s or the 1980s. Things have drastically changed since then, and the need for fresh blood in politics and constantly changing ideas remains, ever necessary. So I feel this to be quite dangerous. I do not want to see our country go down this path, but ultimately we have to wait and see. I do believe that this is something that will go to the Supreme Court, and as I said, I'm not optimistic, but time will tell the direction that they choose to go with this. So those are the two main things that regard to the Constitution directly. Now we're going to kind of transition into some of the things that we talked about with my last video. As I said before, Trump made a lot of promises that on day one, let's just say at least in the first week of his administration, but he did say day one, that a lot of executive orders and bills would be put in place that would help the working class, right? So not the wealthy, not the oligarchy that he surrounded himself with in his administration, but the average American, which is the vast majority of the people that voted for him, quite frankly. So one thing that I want to talk about that it doesn't go immediately to your mind in the terms of money and financial impact, but it should concern you that all cancer research has now been ordered to cease in this country. The National Cancer Institute of America mid meetings, they're trying to get stuff done as they do on a daily basis for this nation, just shut down. They're not able to work or operate anymore because they all have no funding, anything like that. And this does affect more than just cancer. You're also seeing a cessation of research to the degree of Alzheimer's, this kind of thing where we're looking for cures, constantly doing research to try and make these terrible health conditions, more manageable and pursue potential solutions for the American people. So with this point in particular, I would like people to ask themselves the question, who does this benefit? So it'll be a constant theme in a lot of the things that we have and will talk about with the Trump administration's decisions is who does this benefit? A lot of times if you really think about it, you will come up with an answer, but if we're being honest, the only reasonable answer would be the wealthy. In this particular instance, the first thing that comes to mind is Big Pharma. And this is not uncommon, right? This is not Republican exclusive either. This is one of the major issues with American politics, which is money in politics. The fact that the rich are able to buy our politicians, buy their way into the government, and because of the way the system works, with super PACs, donations, when you have people like Big Pharma, the military-industrial complex, able to funnel millions to even billions of resources into the pockets of politicians, it becomes more obvious when these politicians take office why they make the decisions that they make, especially when it's so clear that they're not benefiting the average American. If you follow the money, it will tell you why these decisions are being made. They simply are acting in the best interest of their donors, and they will not act against the will of their donors. So again, in this particular situation with ending research into cancer, Alzheimer's, There is no explanation as to how this could benefit anyone but the wealthy, but big pharma who are profiting off of these conditions, the medications, the procedures. They would never, of course, want these solutions to be found. They want to continue to make their profit, and that is a major part of the issue that you're seeing here. Similarly, but different, we have a number of orders that were issued in regards to clean energy, the climate, things of that nature. So, to give some examples, what Trump is trying to do now is lean heavily more into fossil fuels, which is no surprise. This is something that he's talked about for a long time. There is an argument to be made that fossil fuels will never go away in this country, right? So they are always going to be a necessity. But what the Biden administration had done was made just great strides towards increasing clean energy in this country. That has a number of benefits. It helps with the fight against climate change and just protecting our environment as well. Not to say that it's going to solve all the problems, but it's a step in the right direction. The other great benefit to this is the job aspect of it. When we talk about clean energy, bringing these kinds of facilities to America, increasing the production of electric vehicles, clean energy plants, whether it relates to wind or electricity, that kind of energy, these are great things just for the economy. We saw that was a huge success under the Biden administration, bringing so many jobs to America. Whereas in the past, traditionally, these clean energy initiatives have been led overseas, particularly in China and things of that nature. So I understand, especially on the right, that many people do not necessarily believe or agree with the concept of climate change. But what I do know is that on both sides of the aisle, there is a common understanding that it is just universally beneficial to bring jobs like this to America, especially good paying jobs. These are not, low class minimum wage jobs. These are very beneficial jobs that can lead people to pursue an education and get these jobs, which is beneficial for America. So, to end this, again, you have to ask yourself why, and it's just like healthcare. It goes back to the money, the donors. Trump and most of the GOP, and again, Democrats as well, but it's on a much higher level on the other side of the aisle, are bought by these donors. You talk about the oil execs, trying to bring back coal, something that really this country had done a great job of moving away from. That oil is one thing, coal is not nearly as necessary in this country. Still will always have a place, but to move this far in that direction is a very blatant attempt to put more money in the pockets of the people that have funded him and defended him and helped him get to this point where he is now in his second term. So, again, this is not benefiting the American people in any way. Not only is it negative on the side of the climate and just trying to protect the environmental integrity of this nation, but just looking at the economic aspect of it, again, is detrimental as well. So that's another thing that I want folks to think about as well. We're going to move away from that now. I want to talk a little bit about the federal hiring freeze. There's a number of reasons for that, and I'm not going to discuss all of it because there are a number of issues with it, but quite frankly, there are some potential perks to that, but that has yet to unfold, so we have to wait and see. But what we do know right now is that this hiring freeze has prevented, in particular, hiring for people who work in the VA, the Veterans Administration, for hospitals, healthcare for veterans in particular. And this is really unfortunate because of all things, this is one of the promises that Trump and the GOP had made. They really, in their rhetoric, they advocate for veterans and the people that have served wars in this country, but it's really just incredible how you watch when these people take power, all of that rhetoric just goes out to the window. We have yet to see or hear of any plan that this administration has to truly benefit veterans in this country. But what we've seen so far is what I've just told you. A lack of health care and the ability to provide health care to veterans, this is inevitably going to not only decrease the availability of the services to them, but in the end, because of the lack of staffing and resources available, this will increase the prices of healthcare for veterans as well. Um, it could be fixed. I think that if Trump gets real backlash on this, it's an easy fix. This is just another question of, is he willing to defy, it would be big pharma again. They are ultimately the ones profiting off of this. And something that I really want people to think about is, when you talk about veterans in particular, this is in fact one of the most vulnerable communities in this nation. I mean, it makes sense when you think about it. Veterans are among one of the highest homeless populations in this nation. They also, just because of the nature of their service, suffer from some of the highest rates of mental health issues, but also physical issues, disabilities and things of that nature. These are people that have fought and served for this country. So to deny them, again, one of the most vulnerable communities in this nation, these services, it should really make you question a lot. And again, we have to think about who are these people serving? Who are they fighting for? None of the things that we've seen so far are helping the average American, veterans, the working class, things of that nature. Those are the primary things that I wanted to discuss. But before we end this video, I do want to talk about the things that weren't discussed as well. This goes back to what I said earlier about Trump making certain promises, and especially providing a timeline on his priorities, which again would be to serve the working class. But let's talk about the things that weren't talked about on a positive way. So, healthcare. We remember the viral moment where Trump had, where he was asked in his interview what his plan for healthcare is, since he does want to either eliminate or severely cut the processes of Medicare and Medicaid. And he had his very famous response of, "Oh, well, I have concepts of a plan." We've yet to see this plan. Even the concepts, there are no concepts that have been presented to us as of yet, beyond taking things away, making things more difficult. There has been no, well, we're going to take this away, we're going to cut Medicare, but we'll propose this solution, perhaps a single payer healthcare system. But of course, that's not what the GOP is going to fight for, and that's not happening. So right now, the healthcare is out in the water. So far we're looking at healthcare getting worse. Not a single thing has been discussed on making it more beneficial. As a matter of fact, he's really raising the prices because he's repealed so many of the Biden era administration rules for healthcare, which, as we know, brought down prices of many, many drugs, especially the most common ones in this nation that are needed. As an asthmatic myself, a lot of the medications that I just have to have become a lot more affordable because of the Biden administration, and that will likely change, unfortunately, because of this new administration. The only thing I can give Trump credit for in this particular area is that he left alone the $35 cap on insulin that Biden put in place. But again, I mean, this is simply not touching one thing that he can't take responsibility for, whereas the flip side of that is slashing everything around it. So it's difficult to give him credit for that, so much as it is more of a, oh, well, thank God that alone, for the many, millions of diabetics in this country who will need that in particular. It's great for them, but we still have a long way to go, and it's unfortunate to see us go backwards instead of forwards, which is the common theme of this administration, unfortunately. So nothing positive on healthcare, nothing on homelessness, something that we briefly discussed, but that's something that he's talked about, and what you're actually seeing in Republican states a lot across the country is the criminalization of homelessness. They're actually making it illegal in some places, and if you're found in a campsite for homeless people in many countries across this country, you're now at risk of being arrested, which is just very difficult to wrap your head around. That would imply that these people have been homeless of their own fruition, which is absurd. I mean, these are people that really need assistance from this nation, and instead they're being criminalized. So nothing positive to say on healthcare, nothing positive to say on the wealth inequality in this nation. One thing that I want people to really understand is, right now you have three people in this country, being Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg, the three of those men, just the three of them, currently possess more wealth than the whole bottom 90% of the rest of the country. If that doesn't disgust you, I mean, this is what oligarchy is. To hoard this much wealth is absurd. Not only that, but those three people that I just mentioned, since the November elections, we've seen their wealth increased collectively by a number, I believe it's $238 billion. And that's not to say that that is their net worth. The combined net worth of these three men is well over $1 trillion. But just since the November elections, where Trump, of course, won, their net worth has increased by 238 billion, and that should tell you a lot. I mean, to see that happen in such a short period of time, and it really is simply because that's where the country is heading. We know that this administration is going to serve the wealthy. They know that their profits are only going to go up from here. And you can see that even if you look at the inauguration, you had the three men that I've been speaking about, Musk, Bezos, and Zuckerberg, sat right behind Trump at his inauguration, front row seats, even better seats than his own cabinet members. So the people that he selected to serve in government took a back row seat to just the three richest men in the country, because that is, in Trump's mind, who he wants to have on his side. He wants to have the richest people around him. You can see that with his administration as well, though. I mean, this is probably the most unqualified administration in the history of this nation, mostly just compromised of right-wing media personalities, people that have never had any experience in politics, much like Trump himself. But what they have done to earn his trust has been fanatic defenders of him, no matter what he says or does. Either that, or you can follow the paper trails, they funneled enough money to him during his first term and re-election that he wants them by his side, because he knows that they won't challenge him, and that is incredibly important to him in the second term, to make sure that no one around him is going to challenge what he wants to get done. So these are things that he has not discussed, things that, in my opinion, are really the most major things facing this country, aside from money and politics, which is becoming a root of corruption for sure. As we talked about earlier, you follow the money, it's bad. And these three men being in his back pocket are a great example of that. Though the argument could be, are they in his pocket or is it the other way around? That would be a great debate to have. But a lot to think about, right? So a lot of negative things that have happened, a lot of things that could have been discussed that haven't been discussed yet, that would be positive changes. So we'll wait and see. Perhaps he has some plans to make some positive moves, and if he does, best believe I will bring those to your attention. But so far, we're heading down a very dangerous road in this country. It's a very dangerous path, and I do intend to keep you all informed on the direction that we continue to head. As I have said, it's very important that we stay informed and that we keep our eyes open, pay attention, and hold the people in power accountable. So I would like to close this off once again just by thanking you for watching this video, especially if you truly did watch it through to the end. I greatly appreciate that. Again, I will ask, if you enjoyed this content, a like, a share, a subscription to my YouTube channel goes a long way, as I do want to keep this going and get this content out to you guys. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. I hope to get more content out to you either Monday or Tuesday, but I look forward to hearing your feedback. You can reach me either in the YouTube comments or on social media in many different areas. So I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see you.